Welcome to Bethel Church's Leadership Podcast, a talk specifically designed to help you go further faster. It is our goal that you are equipped and encouraged to lead the way you were created to lead.
Welcome to Bethel's Leadership Podcast. My name is Tom Van Kempen, and I pastor a great church in San Jose, California. And last month, we began a two-part podcast on servant leadership. The term comes from a man by the name of Robert Greenleaf, who in 1970 wrote a paper based on a book that he read about a servant who ultimately was really the leader of an organization. Now, over the last 50 years, this concept of servant leadership has filtered through most of the business periodicals, and most of the books that you read today, you will find people saying that we need to be servant leaders. But I think there's a difference between the concept of servant leadership and really being a servant leader. The person who most epitomizes servant leadership is Jesus Christ. In Mark chapter 10, verse 45, Jesus himself says this, "For even the Son of Man," referring to himself, "did not come to be served, but to serve." One of my favorite examples of servant leadership is Ronald Reagan. In a book entitled The Great Communicator, the author states this: Ronald Reagan never forgot the presidency belongs to the people. And that's why Ronald Reagan never took his coat off in the Oval Office. It wasn't his office. He believed he was a visitor, a temporary steward. Now that's an amazing thought, that the most powerful man in the world recognized that his job was temporary, that he was just a steward of that particular office, that he was just keeping the seat warm for the next person who was going to be the President of the United States. So let's continue last month's podcast with three more ideas about servant leadership. Number one is this: servant leaders see themselves as stewards. That's how President Reagan saw himself. That's how every leader should see themselves. So here's my question. What is a steward? The word comes from two English words, sty and ward. So ward means keeper of, and sty means the pigsty. So a steward is the keeper or manager of the pigsty. In other words, they're not the owner. So stewards see themselves as managers, not as owners. That means everything under their authority is on loan. Their position, their authority, the resources, the people that they manage or lead, it's all temporary and on loan. It also means that they're accountable to somebody. Now, if you're a follower of Christ, that means that you're accountable to God. But even if you don't believe in Christianity, you're still accountable to a board, to the stockholders, maybe to the stakeholders in general, which includes the customers and your employees and all of the people who follow you. Later in Robert Greenleaf's life, he wrote this: "A new moral principle is emerging, which holds that the only authority deserving of one's allegiance is that which is freely and knowingly granted by the led to the leader, in response to and in proportion to the clearly evident servant stature of the leader." I started thinking about that. 2 years ago, I was voted in as Bethel's pastor, but I didn't get voted in as the leader of Bethel. I just got the opportunity to become the leader. Now, stewards are managers. Stewards are also caretakers. I want to refer again to the Bible, Genesis chapter 2:15, where it says that God put Adam in the garden to do two things. Number one was to work it, and number two was to care for it. The word work literally means to serve. So Adam was placed in the Garden of Eden to serve God and those who'd come after him, and he was placed in the garden to care for it. And so when it comes to stewardship, one of our primary responsibilities is how we care for the organization, and especially the people in that organization. So that changes the mindset of a steward from a career to a calling. Here's the difference. Career focuses on ourselves. Calling focuses on the caller. Career focuses on what's next. For example, when I worked for the Sherwin-Williams Paint Company, the first 3 months I was there, they sent me to Cleveland, Ohio, and they put me through this management training program. And while I was there, they showed us this career track, they called it. And it showed that when I began my job after those 3 months of training, I'd be the assistant store manager. From there, I could be a credit manager or a small store manager. From there, I could become a large store manager. From there, I could become a sales manager, a district manager, or a credit manager. From there, regional manager, and it just went on and on. So you're always thinking about the next spot. When it comes to calling or being a steward, you work in such a manner that you act as if where you're at is where you're going to be for the rest of your life. Career focuses on success, especially short-term success. Calling focuses on faithfulness. 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 2 says, "Moreover, it is required in stewards that a person be found faithful." So career focuses on success. Calling focuses on faithfulness. Career focuses on especially the next 30 days, the next 90 days. But calling isn't focused just on numbers. It's not focused on just making money. It's focused on making people's lives in the world a better place. Number 2, servant leadership appears to be a paradox. The term itself sounds like a contradiction. It sounds like a contradiction to me. Are serving and leading really, can you do them at the same time? Because servanthood seems to be like someone's at the bottom of the totem pole, and leadership seems to imply that someone's at the head of the totem pole, but these are not mutually exclusive ideas. Ken Blanchard says that leadership really has 2 parts. Number 1 is the vision, and number 2 is the implementation of the vision. So in the visionary role, the leaders define the direction. They actually tell everybody where we're going. But in the implementation role, the leader's job is to bring out the greatness or the magnificence of their employees so that they can together accomplish the corporate goals. So how do we do that? We do that, number 1, through inspiration, and number 2, through empowerment. We inspire by creating a shared vision. We inspire by getting a bunch of people to follow you along a journey, because lead literally means to go. So we're going on a journey. We've got a purpose in life, a mission, and then the vision is what does it look like to accomplish that mission? Then you communicate the vision. You clarify the vision. You remind people of the vision over and over and over and over again. Then you get everyone to work together and collaborate and understand that if you're going to go somewhere, that's going to demand change. The status quo is out. You have to be willing to do something completely different. So what does it look like? After you've inspired with vision, the word inspire literally means to breathe life into. So what do these people look like? Well, they look energized, they look activated, they look stimulated, they look motivated, they get excited because they're ready to go somewhere. But although they're ready to go somewhere, are they really ready to go somewhere? Because they need next to be empowered to do the job that you're asking them to do. See, if you're a leader, you know you can't do it on your own. You need people who share your vision and want to get on this bus with you. So how do we give them the tools? Well, first, we have to understand that empowerment is unleashing the power of the people themselves. So we do 3 things at my organization. Number 1, we let people discover. We help them discover their abilities, their gifts, their talents. How do you do that? Well, we do it through personality tests, strengths tests, attitude tests. We ask a lot of questions. We ask our employees, what do you like? What are you interested in? Because we found if people like their job, they do even a better job at their job. We examine their experience. What's their track record look like? What kind of successes have they had in the past? And then we just watch and we observe and we begin to develop. After they discover their gifts, then we help them develop those gifts through training. So this is what I like. You can train for tasks, but you can also train for attitudes. Your attitude is not stuck where it's at. And you can also train for creativity. I learned a long time ago that everyone has creative juices on the inside of him. Our job as leaders is to unleash those creative juices. So how do we do that? We get people to read books, articles, listen to podcasts just like this one, go to seminars, go back to school. And then here's the most important part. You deploy them into action. Nowadays, people are more interested in deployment than employment. Did you get that? Anybody can go out and get a job right now. For the first time in American history, there are more jobs available than people who can fill those jobs. So for the American worker today, we have to give them something more. We have to give them a purpose and a meaning. They have to be deployed in their strengths. People desire to bring their brains to work. So we need to ask opinions. We need to give people opportunities. We need to share power. Now, there's an interesting story in Acts chapter 6 where the church began to grow and grow and grow and grow, and complaints started rising. Nobody knew what to do about it. So the disciples made a decision. We're going to share our power and create a new line of people called deacons, and we're going to give them the authority to take care of problems. Well, the immediate verse following this story says that the church grew. So by sharing power, things actually grow. At this point, you just begin to encourage. When you see improvements, let people know. Recognize people's contributions. Celebrate their victories. And finally, if I'm to wrap up the 2 months, I would wrap it up this way. Servant leadership is about people. It's all about human interaction. It's all about relationships. It's not about being the president, the CEO, the pastor, or whatever it is you want to do. It's about loving people and leading people. Now, I want to make sure you heard that. I said love them and lead them. This is what that looks like. Loving people sees the best in others. Loving people believes that everyone has an innate potential and that they're valuable in who they are. Loving people means that we're quick to give second chances because it's only through making mistakes that people learn and get better. And leading people means that you are consciously aware of the influence that you have in people's lives, and you take your job as leader seriously. So let me give you 5 concluding lessons. Number 1, do not forget to take out the garbage. No task can be too menial for you. That includes picking up trash, cleaning the bathroom once in a while. It doesn't hurt anybody. Number 2, keep learning. If you want your people to keep learning, keep developing their leadership skills, then you have to keep learning. When you stop learning, you actually stop leading. Number 3, keep your word. All we've got is our word. Our word is our bond, as they say. So as men and women of character and men and women of integrity, when we keep our word, we build trust with our people, and they will follow us anywhere. Number 4, live the corporate values. Every company, every organization, every church has 3, 6, 9 corporate values. You need to live them. You need to live them in every word that comes out of your mouth and every communication that you send out, whether it's a letter, an email. In all of your actions, you've got to live those corporate values. And 5th and finally, you got to be willing to replace yourself. We started with Robert Greenleaf, and we're going to end by talking about him too. This is what he said in one of his later writings. The true test of a servant leader is this. Do those around the servant leader become wiser, freer, more autonomous, healthier, and better able themselves to become servant leaders? I can think of no better example than Jesus Christ and the 12 disciples. The 3 years that they spent with Jesus Christ, they were becoming wiser, freer, more autonomous, healthier, and in the end, they even became servant leaders themselves. They turned the entire world upside down in just 1 generation. And that's really what servant leadership is. It's changing the leadership paradigm upside down. Rather than leadership benefiting the leader, it benefits the people, the stakeholders, the parishioners, the stockholders, the employees, the customers, the followers. That's what servant leadership is really all about. Thank you for joining us for this podcast, and I really look forward to seeing you next month. God bless you.